Hey, hi, hello, what is up, friends? My name is Jamie, and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a little bit unhinged. It will be, because I have been away because I don't have the computer that I used to edit anymore. I have to get a new one, and I'm still in the process of doing that. So I have not been able to put out any channel content because I haven't been able to edit anything. And I just decided, you know what if I just filmed a video, just didn't edit it, and just put it up on the internet? I mean, why not? The thing is that I've missed putting out content and making videos, and I've been reading a lot. I have been sort of filming some things. I've been reading books for a video and then just filming the segments, and then eventually when I get my editing computer back, I'll be able to make that into a video and put it out there. But I have missed being able to talk about what I'm reading because I've been reading a lot of stuff, but have no opportunity to make it into a reading vlog or something. So we're just gonna go through all the books that I've read recently and maybe talk about a few that I have lined up for spring. So this is gonna be unhinged. I can't, if there's a book that I read via audiobook, I can't put the cover up. There's no color correction, the lighting is a little rough, so sorry in advance for all of that, but I do have some books to talk about. So without further ado, because I can't put my intro in, here's my intro. Excellent. There we go. There's your intro. All right. First up, we are talking about all of the physical books that I owned that I read recently. And all of this is going to be as of the winter horror vlog. So winter horror was what I read, the last stuff that I read in January. So this is going to be basically all of February. So first up, we have The Gathering Dark, an anthology of folk horror edited by Tori Bovolino. So exactly what it sounds like. This is a short story collection of, this is young adult, okay? This is young adult. I bought this book back in October of last year, which is when it was released, and I literally ran to Barnes & Noble when I saw this cover. I ran, bought it, and then I was reading and I was like, oh yeah, I don't like YA. So this ended up only being about a 3-star for me, even though it is literally so gorgeous. And I had started it back in the fall, but just never finished it because, again, I very impulsively bought this book. But I will say that I still love the cover and I still love having it in my library, and maybe someday someone who does love YA or is more age appropriate for these stories is going to come across my library and, discover it and really love it. These are horror tales, but honestly, only I think 2 of them were actually kind of scary. Most of them were not scary, and unfortunately, I think several of them were not only not scary, but just badly written, poorly written, which does make me really upset. And I don't remember too many of them. I know there's a story by Chloe Gong, who is a popular author I don't really like, although her short story was one of the better ones in this collection. And then the story that's actually written by the editor, the story that's written by Tori Bovolino, was easily the best and most scary. And the others are just okay. The problem is that the lows of this book or of this collection are so low, just to the point that it's just bad writing for any age. But I get what it was trying to do. I wish that it had been a more carefully curated collection. Yeah, it was fine. All right, moving on. This is literally so weird without editing. I have to be aware that I can't mess up or do any long pauses like I would, where I would cut the video. We're just rolling with it. Okay. Next up is Useless Magic by Florence Welch. So this is a book of poetry and all of the lyrics from Florence and the Machine up until their latest album. I adore Florence and the Machine, and I just had to get this beautiful, beautiful book of poetry and lyrics, and it includes images and drawings from her and like all of her notes while she was compiling the songs. So you see like stuff that's in her handwriting, and just like, I mean, it's gorgeous. It's really gorgeous. I love having it in my home. I actually keep it out in the bookshelf that's in my living room. It's this beautiful cloth bound book, and I just took an afternoon. I like listened to a couple of the songs along with reading the lyrics, but I really tried to dive into the lyrics and treat them like you would poetry. And she also has some extra poems in the back too, but I annotated a lot. I got my pen out. I wasn't like afraid. I would like mark which songs were my favorite. So all of that, I was really just, I was having a great time with that. I'm trying to pull up my Goodreads right now, just to make sure that I get everything. Yes. I had a really great time with this, and it was just a fun afternoon, a fun little afternoon to myself, just like reading some of my favorite lyrics from my favorite songs. So that was great. 5 stars. Okay, next up on my physical, the books that I own that I read in February, next up was The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. I do have this physical copy. I bought this, I thrifted it last February, so it literally took me 1 year to pick this up after I bought it, and then I didn't even read the physical copy. I picked up the audiobook at my library. This, I'm sad to say, was not a win at all, and I think Anne Patchett is just not going to be the author for me. I have previously tried to read Anne Patchett's short story collection, essay collection, These Precious Days, which has that adorable cover with the little like drawing of the dog on the front. I wanted that to be like cozy and wonderful and amazing, and it's not that it wasn't those things, it's just that I don't know, like me and Anne Patchett just like don't mesh. So anyway, I DNF'd that essay collection, but I had this sitting on my shelf, and I was like, but she's so known for her prose and for her fiction, so like, let's give it a go. And this is, it's not bad, like it's certainly like a competent story, but it's just so, like, it's bland, unfortunately. So The Dutch House is about a family, a middle-class family. I believe this is it starts in at the end of World War II, just post-World War. And this is a middle-class family who comes into a great deal of money after their father makes a good investment, and they end up being able to buy this huge mansion called the Dutch House. And so it's about this family going from like middle class to a very wealthy upbringing, but the kids, who are the main characters, it's a brother and sister, they have basically only known the Dutch House for all their lives, and then their father gets remarried after his wife's death, and the stepmom is definitely your evil stepmom stereotype, and she kicks out the kids after their father's death. She keeps the Dutch House, and then the kids are thrown back into kind of like a middle class life. At least that's how the book is pitched, and it's kind of this like dark fairy tale, Cinderella-esque, but it's like a reversal in a couple ways. And I really loved the concept of doing this like Cinderella type story, but with making a couple of distinct changes. And I thought it was interesting in concept, but it's just not that interesting, honestly. It doesn't really go too far. It's very drawn out. This takes place over like the entirety of these people's lives, which I'm just coming to find decades long, like generation spanning stories are not my favorite thing. I just have to accept that they are not something that I like. And on top of that, I just don't think a lot of people are going to find this relatable. Like, yes, Anne Patchett is a good writer. She does, speak about things that are universally felt, but this main character is a landlord. He's a landlord, and he is like actively a part of gentrifying communities in New York. And the idea is like he kind of knows about it, but it's not a time in society when anyone's like really criticizing that action. But in today's world, in the year of our Lord 2023, like it's just hard to read and it's hard to get behind. Like I'm not sympathetic to this character, and even when they don't have money, they still kind of have money. So it's just bland. It was bland. It didn't go anywhere. It took forever. I listened to it on audiobook, and Tom Hanks did the audiobook, which that was fun. But even he could not save this extremely bland story, so it's 3 stars. Next up, something that was absolutely not 3 stars. This is 5 stars. I'll say that right away. That is Encyclopedia of an Ordinary Life by Amy Krauss Rosenthal. I'm sorry, this cover is just absolutely hideous. But the book is really great. So this was a book that we read for my book club, and it's just, it's a nonfiction piece. It says, Encyclopedia of an Ordinary Life, not exactly a memoir. And the idea is that it's kind of broken up into sections. It's like organized like an encyclopedia. So it's alphabetized, and then she just has these like tiny little short form, sometimes they're only like 1 line, and she uses like charts and graphs, so there is a bit of mixed media in there, and it's just this kind of, it's just one woman living in the early 2000s, and obviously a little bit before, but she's writing this in the early 2000s, and it's just kind of a time capsule of modern, well, not modern, but American life at that time, contemporary American life. And it's just the kind of thing where you read that, it's, you know, when you read a line and you're like, I've thought that exact thing before, and it's kind of poking fun at the fact that we all have the same thoughts because of the time, you know, we're just collectively living in one time and place together. But it's also a lot about her life, the author's life, and she's quirky. She jumps off the page, and I'm going to talk a lot more about her in a video that I hope I can get out soon, assuming I can edit it. But I'm actually going to be reading her next book, which is then her final book, because she did die of ovarian cancer in 2017. And just knowing how her life eventually ends made this hit so hard, because she does ponder a lot about life, death, what it means to just live an ordinary existence, and how the fact that you are making it through every day is inherently extraordinary. So, this really like just hit me in all of the right ways, and I think that nearly anyone is going to be able to relate to this. Of course, ordinary life is quite relative. She's still, you know, living a upper middle class life, so there's still that, but overall, I just thought she's such a fantastic writer, and she really understands humanity, and her observations on life are just pitch perfect. I love this, and I can't wait to read her next one, or her last one. Okay, and then the last thing on my owned collection that I read in February is, very excitingly, The Walking Dead Compendium 1. So when I get out my full Walking Dead video in which I talk about all of these, I will go into more detail. I almost didn't even want to put this in this video, but I've talked about the fact that I'm going to read these already, so might as well just mention it. I did finish this, and I gave it 4 stars. I'm not going to talk too much more about that because I will eventually have a video on it, but because I'm reading one of these per quarter, that video is not going to come out until the end of 2023, but I just want to put the record out there right now that I did do it. I read this in quarter 1 of 2023, and now I have 3 more to go. Okay, so those are all the books that I own that I read in February or recently. So now I'm going to talk about a couple more that I don't have with me that I read in other ways. But I also do want to mention I actually read 3 other books that I can't tell you about because they're going to be in their own video, but I actually did read 3 more on top of this. I had a really good February. I think I read I've read 17 books already this year, which is like definitely an all-time high for me. I don't know. I'm just loving reading right now, and I think it definitely has to do with BookTube. Like, I love making videos for BookTube. I love talking about what I'm reading, and it just invigorates me, even if I can't put out the content right away. I'm really enjoying reading right now. So, okay, another book that I read in February was Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. And this is, I believe, a 2017 release, and it follows this young couple that are fleeing from their country that is being affected by war. And it never actually says which country it is. It just is a country in the Middle East. That's all we know about it. And they're fleeing, and they go to London to Greece and London, a couple other places. And it follows their relationship from its start before the war, kind of how it progressed and how they're kind of forced together because they're together when the war starts, and then they have to like flee their country, and both of them like don't really have anybody else, so that forces them to stay together, even though the reality is that their relationship is kind of going south. So I did not really love this book. I actually only ended up giving it 3 stars, and I really liked a lot of what it was trying to do, but I felt not super connected to the characters. Their story was definitely very like heartfelt, but I don't know, like it kind of just made me sad, honestly. And maybe that's like what it was trying to do, but when you are reading about these 2 characters that are kind of forced to uproot their lives and go somewhere else where they're, not welcome either, really, like, it's hard to read about how that bond didn't like bring them together. And it's not a secret that their relationship does not work out. Like, it's part of the synopsis. It's what the book is about, but I don't know. I want it to hit a little bit different. And also, at some point in the book, it does take a pretty strange left turn. I don't even know if it's a spoiler. Like, I don't even remember if it was in the synopsis, but it does do something that I heard people really didn't like. I didn't mind it, but I was kind of like, it was fine. I don't know. I don't have too much to say about it. Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. I wanted to love it. I did not love it, unfortunately. Okay, next up. Okay, we have Small Game by Blair Braverman. This is a book that's kind of been making its rounds, and it seems to be very divisive. This is a contemporary story about a reality TV show that's kind of survival-esque. It's based on survival. And our main character is a survivalist. Like, her entire job is to be good at survival. And so she gets picked up to be on this reality TV show. And then in the synopsis, it says that while they are filming this survival show, something happens. Something happens, and then they have to decide if that's part of the game or if they are actually in a deadly situation. So that's what the synopsis says. However, this book, it goes somewhere that's, I think, not gonna make a lot of people happy. I gave this a 3 stars. I listened to it on audiobook, and what I will say is that it's a very short book, like a very quick read. So even if you're not like absolutely loving it, you do want to know what's going on, and it's so short that you're like, yeah, I might as well finish it. For me, it does not have the tension that I wanted out of this concept, And I think when you get to the end, you're kind of like, oh, maybe the author was going for something completely different. But whoever wrote the synopsis, I feel like it wasn't the author. I feel like the marketing company, like the publisher, wrote the synopsis of the book to try to get more people to read it. Because if they had written a synopsis that was actually in line with what the author wrote, I don't think as many people would be picking it up, frankly. You know me, I love a survival story. I love a survival game. So I was expecting like high action Hunger Games type thing, and this is just not that book. So if you are wanting a high intense death game scenario, this is not your book. If you're just interested in survival stories in general, or reality TV, because that was kind of fun, even though I could have done a lot more with that in my opinion. But yeah, if this sounds interesting to you, pick it up, but just know that it's not going to be this like really intense thriller like I was kind of hoping it would be. So it was 3 stars. It was fine. I'm not as mad about it as a lot of people are. Like, some people are mad about it. And I understand why. Like, if you set your expectations high and that's what you get, you know, I get it, but I had not high expectations at all. So, okay, those are all the books that I read, plus the 3 that I can't talk about right now, since I last updated you. So now let's get into a couple of books that I'm hoping I can get to. The thing is that a lot of these books are going to be books that I had hoped I was going to get to in February, and I just didn't. So, all right, but we're going to start off with a handful that I absolutely will be getting to. The first one is Notes on an Execution by Dania Kukafa. So this book is very popular. I've been seeing it on a lot of people's shelves. A lot of people have been picking it up, and we have decided to read it for my book club for the month of March. So I'm very excited. I've heard a lot of hype for this book, and I really, really hope it works. Next up, it's March, finally. So I am putting my best foot forward with the intention of reading and loving The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. It is my goal to read all 3 of these in 2023. So I kind of knew that I wasn't going to get to this in February, but I said that I would try. I didn't even try. I'm going to try it in March, though. Always my intention was to read this in March. I don't even know why I bothered talking about it in February. I knew I wasn't going to get to it. But The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, this is a fantasy series. It's very popular, very well known, very beloved. So I'm excited. It has been a long time since I've actually enjoyed a fantasy, a really long time. Maybe the last one I actually liked was Game of Thrones, and that is even barely fantasy. It barely even counts. So, and I've tried reading other fantasies. I don't know. It's just not really my thing. But I'm hoping that this one does break that curse for me. And I'm going to read this with my boyfriend, who absolutely adores fantasy. He literally, that's all he reads is fantasy sci-fi. So it'll be interesting to see how we both feel about it. But yes, I am finally reading The Fifth Season. Okay, and then I have an ARC copy, and I'm so excited. So excited to get to this. That is Camp Zero by Michelle Min Sterling. This is it's not apocalypse. It's on the brink of a climate disaster. And so these people go to some kind of northern territory, and they attempt to live a very sustainable life. And it's this little camp where they try to figure out how to let humanity survive if there is a huge climate meltdown. So I really don't know too much about it, but it just basically sounds like a really amazing literary journey, an electrifying page turner where nothing is as it seems. I think there's so much going on in the synopsis that I can't even explain it, but this does come out on April 4th, so my intention is to read it and get a review up around that time. I'm very excited for this. This has been like it's kind of one of those things where, you know, like you are so excited to read the book that you almost like you're trying to save it in a way. I don't know. Someone explained that phenomenon, but that's what I'm feeling with this book. Next up, a book that I said I was going to read in February and I didn't. That's Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. I actually had a couple books that I was like, oh, kind of romance. I'm going to read it in February, but I'm not a seasonal reader, really. I have been for the sake of YouTube, but it's actually just not really my thing. Like, I'm not like, oh, I have to read romance in February, and I don't even like romance. And this is like not exactly a romance. This follows a husband and wife, and there's some sort of secret that kind of turns life upside down. And I am just desperately curious as to what that secret is. And I don't know, something about this book calls to me. I've talked about it a lot and I still haven't read it, but I am committing to it for March because I'm doing a lot of traveling in March, a lot of time in airports, which gives me a good amount of time to read this. So Fates and Furies, I hope it's great because I put too much energy into wanting to read this. Next, another book that I said I was going to read in February because it's kind of romance-esque. That is The Reader by Bernard Schlink. This is an Oprah's book club pick, but I don't know, it's not really talked about on BookTube. I've not even seen it around, but my friend recommended it to me based on like what he knows of my interests. And this, the reason I actually didn't pick this up as much as I wanted to was because I just recently read My Dark Vanessa, and this involves an age gap inappropriate relationship, I believe. And this is actually, I think, like takes place, I think this is like a trial about a student-teacher relationship. So because of that, I had just read My Dark Vanessa and I really liked it. It was in my top books of 2022, but I was just like, I think I need to take a little bit of time from that subject matter. So I didn't want to read this right away, but like I do want to get to this. I just don't know when. Maybe it'll be March, maybe not. I don't know. And then I have The Bone Clocks by David Mitchell. David Mitchell is one of my favorite authors, and for some reason I have not picked this up, even though I hope and I know that I'm going to love it. I mean, the answer is because it's really long. And I just, again, just kind of like Camp Zero, it's like, I am so excited to read this and I want to like read it so much that I'm kind of like saving it for the right moment. And like, when is the right moment? Does anybody else feel like this? And if you do, like, can you explain it? Because I can't. Like, I want to read this, but I don't know when. I think I just need to start it. Like, I just need to start it. It's been a long time since I've read a David Mitchell, and the last one that I read was in 2020, and that was Slade House, which is his, like, horror thriller thing. And I liked Slade House, but not nearly as much as I wanted to. It definitely had the David Mitchell signature things in it, but I didn't love it as much as I loved Cloud Atlas. And Slade House was a much shorter book. This thing is long and it's intimidating, but I really think that because it is like long and intricate that it will be a knockout, hopefully. Couple more. And then we have The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz. This is a thriller. It takes place at a writing retreat, but specifically the owner of the retreat is a very well-known queer horror writer. She's like very popular, which I just think is really interesting. Like, they're specifically going there to write horror, and like there's this element of social horror, contemporary horror, which I really love. That's my favorite part of horror. And while our main character is at the writing retreat, she runs into her rival, but ex-best friend. So ex-best friend, now rival, and things get spooky. This is a Literally Dead book club pick for April, so I will be reading it closer to April, or maybe even in April. I'm not really sure. Definitely gonna read it, but gonna try to read it for that book club. And then next up, a book that I just can't, like, maybe I'm just not even interested in it anymore, but at the same time I'm like, oh, but I have it, I should read it. That's Dear Edward by Anne Napolitano. This is a story about survivor's guilt after a boy is the sole survivor of a plane crash, and that's really all I know about it. Like, I don't know too much else. It doesn't look terribly long. It feels like I'll be able to finish it really quickly, but I mean, like, on one hand, I'm interested to read it because I obviously picked it up, but on the other hand, it's like, this just keeps moving farther and farther down my list, so I don't know. I'm gonna keep it there, but I don't know what's gonna happen with that one. I also have another, oh, I didn't even mention this earlier, but also, in addition to the 3 books that I read that I can't talk about, I also read another Dark Academia book. I'm going to have part 2 of my Dark Academia reading vlog out at some point this year after I read enough of them. So I do have another Dark Academia on my list that I hope to get to. I will get to it in March, but you're probably not going to hear about it until whenever it is that book comes out, which is probably going to be closer, or sorry, not the book, the vlog, which is going to be closer to the fall. 2 more. So these 2 books. So this is the Deep by River Solomon, which is a folklore novella, an Afro-futuristic folklore novella. This I picked up in February. Both of these 2 books I picked up in February. Wanted to read them, just didn't get around to it because I had a lot of other books already that I already owned. So this is an Afro-futuristic novella. And basically it takes place, so the women who were on slave ships, the pregnant women on slave ships that were thrown overboard, it's kind of a folklore tale about they become these creatures in the deep, and they have this society under the water, and I'm gonna guess that one of them has to go to the surface for some reason. So I don't know too much about this, but I did find this in a free little library, and it just like immediately grabbed my attention, and it's very, very short. So I hope to get to that pretty soon. And then this one is Hell of a Book by Jason Mott. I don't know too much about this other than it has been really, really praised for its innovative writing style, something I absolutely love. I do know that this follows an author who is kind of has like an imaginary friend who is like the character in his book, but they are like communicating with each other. And then this also ties into I believe there's themes of police brutality in this story as well. So a lot going on. I think this is going to be something that I'm going to be really interested in because I love things that have a really innovative storytelling form. The reason I picked this up in February and I wanted to read it, but like I'm trying to like find the mood I need to be in to read something that does have pretty heavy themes. Is to be honest, I have not really been in the mood to read anything super heavy, as evident by I have a couple books that I started, DNFs. So one of the books that I did have on my winter reading list was Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I loved Maggie O'Farrell's memoir. I was so excited to read her fiction, and everybody loves Hamnet, and I wanted to love. I will say I want to. I didn't want, like, past tense. Okay, I'm not making sense, but I did start this book, but as you can see, I did not get very far. I got like, I don't know, like 30 pages. The thing is that this writing is quite dense, and I felt like it was taking so much brain power to read it. And to be honest, like lately, like the past week at least, I've been feeling like on the verge of like half sick. I can't focus at all. and this was hard. This was hard to start reading. The language is dense, the words are tiny, like the print font is like literally tiny. And it does not have the most like exciting start, which I do know this is a historical fiction, so I get it, but I was like struggling in the beginning, and I want this to be amazing, and like I think it does. Like I have heard from people say that like it has a little bit of a slow start, but it kicks into high gear and then you like can't put it down. So I need to just recommit myself to reading it. I did try, but I just like could not stay interested. I just kept putting it down and not wanting to pick it up. So I need to get it together. I need to read that. So I'm not gonna give up on it. I just think that maybe now is not really the time for me to read that. I just haven't been in the mood. And then in a very similar situation, 5 Tuesdays in Winter by Lily King, I put this on my winter reading list because obviously 5 Tuesdays in Winter, I wanted to read it. But I started reading it and like, again, I just like couldn't, the writing is good. That's the thing. Both these books, the writing is very, very strong. They're both, you know, literary in the most like extreme like sense. But I just could not stay focused, and honestly, it just wasn't really interesting to me at that time. I impulse bought this. Actually, no, this is for my indie bookshop crawl. So like I had intentions to read it, but I started reading it and just it wasn't working out. So I don't know what's gonna happen with that. Maybe I'll try again next year. A DNF, only one that I had recently, that is Secluded Cabin Sleeps 6 by Lisa Unger. To be honest, like, why did I try this? I literally just said I'm done reading like these like little thriller things. I don't like them. I never have. But The Overnight Guest kind of, I was like, maybe I could like this. So it kind of gave me this like hope that maybe one day I could like these kind of books. But the very next one I picked up, Secluded Cabin Sleeps 6, I DNF'd it so fast. Like, could not stand the writing, could not deal with the characters. This isn't actually the worst writing that I've ever seen in this kind of book, but it certainly wasn't good. And the characters were just kind of already insufferable. And I could tell that this was going to be a really just out, like, insane kind of story. Like, what am I trying to say? Like, I could tell immediately that this was going to be a really out there thriller, which is not really what I like. And I could already tell, it's very early, it sets up the kind of story it's going to be, and I was not interested. So I got about, I don't know, I'd probably say 50 pages into this, and then I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I did pick it up because it sounds exactly like something I would like. It says 3 couples rent a luxury cabin in the woods for a weekend getaway to die for in this chilling locked room thriller. So a ton of buzzwords I like. Locked room thriller, 3 couples, they're renting a luxury cabin. I myself do love to get my friends together and rent a cabin in the woods. And this actually takes place in Georgia, which is where I am currently. So like everything, it was like, oh my gosh, this was like written for me. But then immediately started reading and was like, no, this is not written for me. This is not what I like. So I DNF'd that. And then I am currently, just as of a couple nights ago, I started reading The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This has been sitting on my TBR shelf for so long. And I was just thinking like, I can't do anything serious right now. My brain can't focus. Maybe I just need vibes. And for vibes, we go to Erin Morgenstern. This is my first Erin Morgenstern. I've never read her before, but I know all about her writing style. And yeah, this is providing the vibes that I want. This is very, it's like dark, magical, kind of autumnal. That's what I'm saying. I'm not much of a seasonal reader. I'll read whatever, whenever. But the writing is like, it's strong, but what I like is that she breaks it up into very like digestible sections. Each section like chapter is only like a couple pages, and she packs a lot in those chapters, but she makes it digestible. And this is following a magical circus, and at the center of this circus is a magical competition between these two characters. And they don't know it, but it's actually a competition in which only one of them can make it out alive. So it's kind of like a forbidden romance. They kind of come to fall in love, but without realizing that the competition they take part in is going to kill one of them. So, I mean, that sounds great, right? Yeah, I'm enjoying this right now. I think it's going to take me a long time to read it, though, because, again, the writing is quite dense, but it's good, and it's interesting, and it's creative. It's very, like, I'm so excited to see what the magic actually looks like when they're, like, at their full power, because it does, like, take place when it starts when they're children, and they're learning how to use magic, so, yeah, magic. I'm excited. This is especially because I've been like feeling kind of sick this week. I've been like wanting something cozy, and I like literally just finished reading The Walking Dead Compendium 1, which was very intense, but very bingeable. Like, I read it pretty quickly actually, and even I'm kind of like still like itching to start the second one, but that's like how engaging it was. But I was like, maybe I should read something comfy, cozy, magical. Yeah, so there you go. That is all the books that I have read recently. I do have my winter reads board here to see like what I read. I know that spring doesn't technically start until March 20th, but we are going off of not the calendar. We're going off the seasons, right? So like December, January, February would be considered winter for me, and now March, April, May is going to be spring, June, July, August is summer, September, October, November is fall. So with that being said, it's March, so I'm at the end of my winter reading, and how did I do? The Bone Clocks, we already talked about that, didn't read it. Spoiler, If We Were Villains is the... Wow, I didn't even think about this. If We Were Villains is the Dark Academia that I read, and I read it. Oh my gosh, I feel like all of this is two spoilers. Whoops. 5 Tuesdays in Winter, didn't read. Dear Edward, didn't read. Camp Zero, didn't read. No Exit, yes, that was for my winter horror. The 5th Season, didn't read. See, why did I even put it in winter? I knew I wasn't going to read it. Hamnet, tried. A Winter's Promise. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about that. Winter's Promise is right there. I did start the audiobook, and it didn't go super well. I think I need to read the physical book, or I was reading it in the car with my boyfriend, or we were listening to it together, and he did not like it, so had to quit. So I did not end up reading A Winter's Promise in winter. Sad. Moon of the Crescent Snow. Yes, that was for my winter horror. Misery, yes, that was for my winter horror. Reprieve, I talked about this before, I think, but I thought that Reprieve was a winter horror, and it's not. It actually takes place in April, so I didn't read it. And The Road, yes, that was for my winter horror. So, not too bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them completed, plus a bunch of other books that weren't on the list. That's the thing, I make these lists, and then I barely stick to them. I read like 2 from the list that I made, and then I just read whatever I want. So, am I a mood reader? I don't know. I really don't know. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. But anyway, there you go. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me through this. I'm so sorry that I haven't been able to upload regularly. I'm still working on getting my computer. I need to get that done because I miss it. I really, really miss it. And I'm actually just like, I'm enjoying my reading right now, and I feel like I'm very creatively inspired. Like, I want to put out this type of content. I'm really loving it right now. So if you guys are still around, thank you so much for being here. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, week, month, year, all of it. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you next time. Bye!